The smell of recycled air has a specific quality aboard ship. Not quite stale, not quite fresh. 17 years breathing it, and I still notice. Oxygen scrubbed through filtration systems. Trace elements of lubricant from the atmospheric processes. The faint metallic tang that comes from spending your entire life inside a hull that has traveled the void for 3 centuries. The Sovereign's Reach was old when my grandfather served aboard her. She is older now. The air tastes like history. I was born in the lower crew quarters, Section 14, Compartment 73. My mother worked the plasma coil maintenance rotation. My father managed waste reclamation for decks 8 through 12, both dead now. Coolant leak in year 41 of my life took my mother. My father died 6 months later. The ship's medic eye said his heart stopped. I think he simply decided there was no reason to continue. I was 23 when I transferred from waste reclamation to cargo inventory. Better pay. Better quarters. Still lower decks. Still crew class. But my compartment had a viewport. Actual window looking out into the void. Most crew never see outside the hull except through picked screens. I could watch the stars during sleep cycles. It helped. The void is honest. It does not pretend to care whether you live or die. Rogue trader Harrow commanded the Sovereign's Reach. I never met him directly until the day we found the artifact. Rogue traders do not speak with cargo inventory clerks. The command hierarchy aboard a rogue trader vessel is feudal. Harrow lived in the upper decks, the spire sections where gravity plating actually worked properly and the air did not taste like machine oil. We lived in the lower sections, thousands of us, maintaining the systems that kept him comfortable while he negotiated trade contracts and navigated the Imperium's commercial regulations. I did not resent this arrangement. It was simply structure. Some men are born to command. Others are born to inventory cargo containers and log manifest data. I was the latter. I accepted it. The artifact changed everything. We had been contracted to survey a dead system. No name, just an astrogation designator, Sephiro 2. 3 planets, all lifeless. The 4th planet had supported human habitation once, perhaps during the dark age of technology. Archaeological surveys indicated ruins, possibly pre-imperial construction. The Adeptus Mechanicus had flagged the system for investigation but lacked available vessels. Rogue trader Harrow accepted the survey contract. Standard terms: catalog any recoverable technology, report findings to the Mechanicus, receive payment based on the value of recovered materials. We spent 3 weeks in system. Survey teams deployed to the 4th planet's surface in shifts. I remained aboard ship, processing their inventory reports as they transmitted data, mostly worthless material. Degraded structural components, corroded metals, fragments of machinery too damaged to identify, let alone restore. Then Survey Team 4 transmitted an emergency recall signal. I was working my shift in Cargo Bay 7 when the signal came through. Emergency recalls were rare, dangerous rare. The kind of thing that meant someone had died or discovered something valuable enough to kill for. I continued logging inventory data. Not my concern. My function was to process what they brought back, not to evaluate why they returned early. The team leader was a man named Vrel. I had processed his survey reports for 2 years. Efficient, thorough, never filed, incomplete manifests. When his team's shuttle docked and he requested immediate audience with the rogue trader, I noted the irregularity in my log. When Harrow himself descended to the cargo bay to meet Vrel, I noted that as well. They spoke for 11 minutes. I could not hear the conversation from my inventory station, but I observed Harrow's body language. Rigid, focused. He gestured twice toward the shuttle. Vrel nodded. Then Harrow issued orders via Vox, and suddenly the cargo bay was swarming with armsmen. They unloaded a single container from the shuttle, standard cargo configuration. 2 meters long, 1 meter wide, ½ meter deep, sealed with mechanical locks, not electronic. Old, pre-imperial construction, I guessed from the design aesthetic. The metal was dark, some alloy I did not recognize. No corrosion, no degradation. After millennia buried in that dead world's ruins, the container showed no weathering. The armsman transported the container to a secure vault 3 decks above the cargo bay. I logged the transfer. Container STC 01. Origin Sephiro 2, Survey Team 4. Destination Secure Storage, Deck 12. I noted the timestamp and continued with my shift. I did not learn what the container held until 6 hours later, when the entire crew received mandatory attendance orders for a general assembly in the primary cargo cathedral. 12,000 crew. We gathered in shifts because 12,000 bodies cannot fit in any single space aboard ship. I attended the 3rd assembly shift. We stood in ranks, organized by section and function, while rogue trader Harrow addressed us from an elevated platform. "You have served with distinction," he began. His voice carried through the Vox speakers mounted throughout the cathedral. The Sovereign's Reach has operated for 317 years, 19 generations of crew, 42 charter renewals, 106 successful trade expeditions. Today we have achieved something greater than all of those combined. He paused. Dramatic effect. Rogue traders are trained in oratory. Survey Team 4 has recovered a complete standard template construct. The cathedral remained silent. Most crew did not understand what that meant. I understood because I processed Mechanicus requisition documents regularly. Standard template constructs were Dark Age technology. Design templates for manufacturing everything from agricultural equipment to weapon systems. Most STCs were fragmentary, damaged, incomplete. The Mechanicus spent fortunes searching for even corrupted fragments. A complete STC was worth planetary economies. "This discovery belongs to the Sovereign's Reach," Harrow continued. "It belongs to this crew. It belongs to those who found it, and those who will protect it. The Adeptus Mechanicus will offer fortunes for this artifact. We will negotiate from a position of strength. We will secure terms that benefit every member of this crew. Profit shares will be distributed according to charter provisions. You will all prosper from this discovery, not from everyone." The lower deck crews, we understood that fortunes promised to crew usually evaporated before distribution. But enough crew cheered that the sound filled the cathedral. Hope is a powerful drug. I did not cheer. I logged the announcement mentally and calculated probable outcomes. The Mechanicus would not negotiate generously. They considered all technology sacred. All STCs belonged to Mars by divine mandate. Rogue trader Harrow claiming ownership would be interpreted as tech heresy. We were in danger. I kept this assessment to myself. My function was inventory management, not strategic analysis. I returned to my station after the assembly and continued processing manifest data. The Mechanicus responded within 18 hours. I was not privy to the initial communication. I learned of it third-hand through crew gossip networks. Apparently, the Mechanicus explorator fleet operating 2 systems away had detected our survey activity. They demanded immediate transfer of all recovered technology for proper consecration and evaluation. Rogue trader Harrow refused. He cited his charter provisions and his legal right to recovered materials. The Mechanicus delegation countered with theological arguments. Technology was sacred. Withholding sacred artifacts was heresy. Harrow maintained his position. The negotiation collapsed. Within 48 hours of the initial contact, the Mechanicus issued an ultimatum. Surrender the STC or face sanction. Harrow transmitted his response. The Sovereign's Reach was departing Sephiro 2 under its charter rights. Any attempt to interfere would be reported to the nearest imperial authorities as unlawful seizure. We translated to warp transit 6 hours later. I was in my quarters when the ship shuddered. The Geller field activation produces a specific vibration pattern through the hull. I felt it through the atmospheric systems. We were running. The Mechanicus would follow. They had ships. They had resources. They would pursue us across sectors if necessary. The STC had made us targets. I tried to sleep. The viewport showed nothing but warp space distortion. I closed the shutter and lay on my cot, processing probabilities. Rogue trader Harrow believed he could negotiate from strength. He believed his charter protections and his political connections would shield him from Mechanicus retaliation. He believed wrong. The Mechanicus did not negotiate when they believed technology was at stake. They sanctified, they purged, they recovered. We were not going to survive this. The man who would matter most to me was named Davos. I met him 7 days after we fled Sephiroth II. The ship had translated back to real space in an uncharted system, hiding while Harrow attempted to establish communication with potential buyers. The crew was nervous. Rations had been reduced to extend supply duration. Work shifts had been extended to maintain systems at peak efficiency. Everyone understood we were fugitives now. I was conducting inventory audit in Cargo Bay 3 when Davos approached my station. He wore engineer robes, Mechanicus insignia visible on his vestments. Junior rank. He was perhaps 30 years old, augmented at the hands and eyes. Standard Mechanicus modifications for technical personnel. You are the inventory supervisor for this section, he said. Not a question. Statement of fact. Yes. I require access to manifest data for Survey Team 4's recovered materials. All items logged from Sephiroth II expedition. I accessed the data and transmitted it to his data slate. Standard procedure. Mechanicus personnel aboard rogue trader vessels had authority to review cargo manifests for theological compliance. He reviewed the data for 3 minutes. Then he looked at me. His augmetic eyes whirred, focusing mechanisms adjusting. You logged the STC container as item STC 01. You included dimensional specifications and transfer timestamp. You did not include content description. Content was sealed. I do not log cargo I cannot verify. Correct procedure. He nodded. You are thorough. It is my function. Your function is about to become complicated. He deactivated his data slate and leaned closer. His voice dropped to a level barely above the ambient machinery noise. The rogue trader intends to sell the STC to the highest bidder. He has already transmitted offers to 17 potential buyers. Hirtech factions, renegade Forge worlds, entities the Mechanicus considers corrupt. He will start a bidding war. I processed this information. Why are you telling me? Because you keep accurate records, because you will document what happens next, because someone needs to witness. Witness what? What happens when greed encounters dogma? He straightened. His voice returned to normal volume. Thank you for the manifest access. I will submit the appropriate requisition forms if further review is required. He left. I stood at my inventory station, watching him walk away through the cargo bay's massive space. His augmatic components caught the overhead lighting, glinting red and brass. I did not understand why he had chosen to confide in me. I was nobody. Inventory clerk, lower deck crew, functionally invisible to command personnel. But he had seen me, recognized me as someone who documented, someone who kept records, someone who would witness. I returned to my work, logged the interaction, noted the timestamp, continued processing manifest data. But I thought about what he had said. Greed encountering dogma. I knew which would win. The Imperium runs on dogma. Greed is common. Dogma is fundamental. We were dead. We simply had not stopped moving yet. Davos returned to my station 3 times over the following week, always with legitimate reasons. Manifest review, cargo theological compliance verification, equipment consecration scheduling. But each visit included moments of private conversation, words spoken beneath the machinery noise where surveillance systems could not capture audio. He told me things command did not want crew to know. The Mechanicus explorator fleet had tracked us. 4 ships, including an Arc Mechanicus with enough firepower to cripple our vessel in a single salvo. They were 6 days behind us, closing steadily. Harrow's attempts to arrange sale of the STC had attracted attention from multiple factions, most of them hostile. Rival rogue traders interested in stealing the STC. Here-tech groups willing to pay fortunes but also willing to kill everyone aboard afterward to eliminate witnesses. A Chaos Warband had even transmitted an offer, which Harrow had rejected immediately. "He is running out of options," Davos said during his 4th visit. "The legitimate buyers will not touch this. Too much Mechanicus attention. The illegitimate buyers are too dangerous. He cannot keep running forever. The ship requires resupply, maintenance, crew morale management. Eventually, he will have to choose. Surrender the STC or fight." "He will not surrender," I said. "No, he will not. His pride will not permit it." Davos's augmetic eyes focused on me with uncomfortable intensity. "When the fighting begins, stay in the lower decks. The Mechanicus will board. They will purge command personnel first. Lower deck crew may survive if they do not resist." May. The Mechanicus does not forgive tech heresy. Everyone aboard this ship is complicit. That they prioritize targets. If you are fortunate, you will be low priority. "Why are you helping me?" He was silent for 17 seconds. I counted. "Because you keep records," he said finally. "Because someone should survive to testify what happened here. The Imperium functions on documentation. If no record exists, it is as if events never occurred. I want this recorded. You serve the Mechanicus. You could record it yourself. I am compromised. I serve aboard a rogue trader vessel that has committed tech heresy. When the explorator fleet arrives, they will purge me along with everyone else. My testimony would be corrupted data. Yours might survive." He left again. I thought about that conversation for hours. He wanted me to survive, not because I mattered, but because I kept records. I was a data repository, a witness. My value was archival, not personal. I found this oddly comforting. Purpose is easier to accept than affection. The crew began fragmenting after the 2nd week of flight. Harrow announced that negotiations were ongoing. He projected confidence. He promised that sale terms would be finalized within days, that fortunes would be distributed, that everyone would prosper. But supply rations continued decreasing. Work shifts continued extending. The crew began questioning. Arguments erupted in the lower deck mess halls. Some crew believed Harrow should surrender the STC, accept whatever terms the Mechanicus offered. Survive. Others believed selling to the highest bidder was the only option. Risk everything for potential fortune. A third faction believed we should simply destroy the STC, eliminate the artifact that had made us targets, remove the reason for pursuit. The ship's armsmen maintained order initially. But armsmen are crew. They had opinions. They had fears. They began choosing sides. I observed the fragmentation from my inventory station. Logged incident reports. Noted patterns. Violence was escalating. 3 crew had died in altercations during the previous week. Harrow issued discipline orders, but enforcement was inconsistent. Authority was degrading. Davos appeared at my station again. His robes were stained with machine oil. He looked exhausted. "The engineering sections are close to mutiny," he said without preamble. "The plasma reactor crew believe Harrow is leading them to execution. They want to sabotage the engines. Force him to surrender. Will they succeed?" I convinced them to wait. Told them sabotage would doom everyone, including themselves. They are considering. He paused. "I do not know how much longer I can maintain stability. The crew is fracturing. What does Command intend?" "Command intends to continue negotiations. Harrow believes he can still arrange favorable terms. He is wrong. The buyers he is negotiating with are Heretic factions. They will take the STC and kill us, or the Mechanicus will arrive first and kill us. Either way, we die. Then there is no solution." "No. There is no solution, only variations of the same outcome." He looked at me directly. His augmetic eyes had developed a slight flicker. Damage, perhaps, or fatigue-induced malfunction. "I am going to try something. It will probably fail. But I need to try..." "What?" "I am going to recommend Harrow surrender the STC directly to the Adeptus Mechanicus. Formally." with full theological observance. Frame it as discovery and consecration, not theft. Perhaps they will show mercy. Will they? No. But perhaps they will kill fewer of us. He left again. I did not see him for 6 days after that conversation. During those 6 days, the ship descended into chaos. Fighting erupted in the engineering sections. The plasma reactor crew attempted their sabotage. The armsmen responded with lethal force. 17 dead. The reactor remained functional, but 3 primary engineers were among the casualties. Efficiency degraded. Harrow issued execution orders for the saboteurs. The executions were carried out publicly, broadcast throughout the ship via pict feeds. Morale collapsed further. A faction of senior crew attempted to seize the STC directly. They believed if they controlled the artifact, they could negotiate their own terms. The attempt failed. Harrow's personal guard killed 11 of them in the secure vault. The survivors were executed. The crew began dividing into armed camps, those loyal to Harrow, those who wanted to surrender, those who wanted to fight, those who simply wanted to survive. The armsmen split along the same divisions. Deck sections became territories. Passage between sections required permission, credentials, bribes, or violence. I remained in Cargo Bay 3. My section was relatively stable. The crew here were logistics personnel, inventory specialists, cargo handlers. We had no interest in fighting. We simply wanted to continue functioning. We negotiated passage agreements with all factions. We provided inventory services to whoever controlled the bay. We adapted, but I knew adaptation was temporary. Eventually, the fighting would reach us. Eventually, everyone would have to choose a side. I chose documentation. I logged everything, every incident, every death, every faction movement. I recorded testimony from crew who passed through the cargo bay. I archived it all on data slates that I sealed in cargo containers marked as waste. If the ship was destroyed, perhaps the containers would survive. Perhaps someone would recover them. Perhaps someone would know what happened here. Perhaps testimony would matter. Davos returned on the 7th day. He was injured, burn damage to his left arm, augmetics sparking irregularly. He walked with difficulty. Harrow rejected my recommendation, he said. His voice was steady, despite obvious pain. I presented the theological arguments. I explained that surrender with proper observance might result in mercy. He refused. Said he would not bow to Mechanicus' intimidation. Said he had charter rights that superseded their authority. He is wrong. Yes, he is wrong, but he will not accept correction. Davos sat heavily on a cargo container. His damaged arm hung at his side, servos clicking irregularly. The explorator fleet will arrive within 36 hours. I accessed the astropathic relay logs. Harrow knows they are coming. He is preparing to fight. He cannot win. No, he cannot win. An Arch Mechanicus against a rogue trader vessel is not a battle. It is an execution. He looked at me. The flicker in his augmetic eyes had worsened. I tried. I wanted to prevent this. I failed. You tried. That matters. Does it? If the outcome is unchanged, does it attempting matter? I did not answer immediately. I thought about my records, my documentation, my testimony that might never be read. Yes, I said finally, attempting matters, because someone should try, even if trying fails. Damaged augmetics should not permit natural expression, but somehow his face conveyed something approaching relief. Thank you, he said. Those were the last words he spoke to me. The Mechanicus arrived 34 hours later. I was conducting routine inventory audit when the ship's alert systems activated. Combat stations. All crew to defensive positions. The Vox speakers throughout the cargo bay transmitted Harrow's final address to the crew. The Adeptus Mechanicus has no legal authority to seize our property, he said. His voice carried absolute conviction. We will defend our rights. We will defend our charter. We will defend our discovery. Any crew who refuses to fight will be executed as mutineers. The Emperor protects the righteous. We are righteous. The transmission ended. I remained at my inventory station. I had no defensive position assignment. Cargo inventory clerks are not combat personnel. I continued logging manifest data because continuing was all I knew how to do. The first impacts came 6 minutes later. Bombardment. Not enough to destroy the ship. The Mechanicus wanted the STC intact, but sufficient to disable our weapons systems and propulsion. The ship shuddered. Deck plating vibrated. Somewhere distant, explosions echoed through the hull. Emergency lighting, activated as primary power systems, failed. The bombardment lasted 8 minutes. Then it stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the impacts. I knew what silence meant. Boarding preparations. The Mechanicus would send boarding parties. Skitarii troops, combat servitors, tech priests authorized to kill anyone who resisted. They would secure the ship section by section. They would find the STC. They would purge the crew. I sealed my data slates in their waste containers, marked them with standard disposal designations. If anyone searched cargo, they would find inventory records. Boring. Worthless. Perhaps they would survive that way. The boarding klaxons activated 19 minutes after the bombardment ceased. Hostile contacts throughout the ship. Multiple breach points. I accessed the security pict feeds from my station. Across 17 decks, Mechanicus forces were cutting through the hull. The fighting began immediately. Harrow's loyalists engaged the boarding parties at every breach point. Armsmen with lasguns and improvised barricades against Skitarii with arc weapons and combat protocols refined over millennia. The outcome was never in question. The pict feeds showed methodical slaughter. The Skitarii advanced. The crew died. The Mechanicus forces did not pause to accept surrender. They killed everyone they encountered. Cargo Bay 3 was breached 43 minutes after the boarding began. The blast door at the primary entrance exploded inward. Shaped charges, precisely placed. 6 Skitarii entered through the smoke. Weapons raised. They moved in perfect coordination, each covering a designated fire sector. Behind them, a tech priest in red robes walked calmly into the bay. The cargo bay crew scattered. Some ran for secondary exits. Others attempted to hide behind cargo containers. 3 crew produced weapons, lasguns, probably looted from armsmen, and opened fire. The Skitarii killed them in 2 seconds. Radium carbines fired in synchronized bursts. The 3 crew fell. Their bodies began decomposing immediately, flesh sloughing from bone as radiation poisoning accelerated decay. The tech priest raised one hand. The Skitarii ceased fire. He spoke, his voice amplified by voxcasters built into his throat augmetics. Crew of the Sovereign's Reach, you have harbored tech heresy. You have conspired to conceal sacred technology. The Omnissiah judges you. Those who surrender immediately will be evaluated for complicity. Those who resist will be purged. Choose. I stepped out from my inventory station, raised my hands. Surrender position. I had no interest in dying for rogue trader Harrow's greed. 23 other crew followed my example. We stood in a group at the center of the cargo bay, hands raised while the Skitarii secured the perimeter. The tech priest approached us. His augmetic eyes scanned each face, recording data. When he reached me, he paused. Function? He asked. Cargo Inventory Supervisor, Section 3. Duration of service aboard this vessel? 17 years. Knowledge of the recovered STC artifact? I logged its transfer to secure storage. I have not accessed the container contents. He nodded. You will accompany Mechanicus personnel to verify cargo records. Cooperation will be noted in your evaluation. I was separated from the other crew. A Skitarii escorted me to a secured area near the breached entrance. 2 other crew were already there, both logistics personnel from adjacent sections. We sat in silence while the Mechanicus forces continued clearing the bay. The fighting throughout the ship intensified. I could hear it through the hull. Explosions, gunfire, screaming. The pict feed showed coordinated Mechanicus advance through every deck. Harrow's forces collapsed section by section. Some crew surrendered, most died fighting. The Mechanicus did not differentiate. Surrender or resistance, the outcome was purge. I waited for 3 hours and 47 minutes. The sounds of fighting gradually diminished. The ship grew quiet. The purge was approaching completion. A different tech priest arrived to escort us, not the one who had breached our cargo bay. This one was older, more extensively augmented. His body was mostly machine. Only his face remained biological, and even that was scarred by ritual modification. "You are cargo inventory personnel," he said. "Statement, not question. You will verify the contents of all cargo holds. You will identify any additional recovered technology. You will provide complete manifest documentation. Cooperation ensures efficient evaluation. Obstruction ensures immediate termination." We followed him through the ship. The corridors were filled with bodies. Crew, armsmen, officers. The Mechanicus had killed everyone who resisted, everyone who fought, everyone who had supported Harrow's refusal to surrender. The corpses lay where they had fallen. Servitors would collect them eventually. For now, they simply documented the cost of greed. We walked through the carnage. I counted bodies mechanically, 73 in the corridors between Cargo Bay 3 and our first destination. I logged the number mentally. Testimony. Someone should know how many died. We spent 14 hours verifying cargo manifests. I accessed every inventory system, every data repository, every sealed container log. The tech priest reviewed everything with methodical precision. He asked questions. I answered truthfully. I had no reason to lie. The Mechanicus would find everything eventually. Cooperation might extend my life a few hours longer. During the verification process, I asked about crew casualties. The tech priest answered without emotion. 7,418 crew have been terminated for active resistance. 2,307 crew are detained for evaluation. 63 crew are missing, presumed hiding in uncleared sections. Senior officers, including rogue trader Harrow, are deceased. Harrow was dead. I felt nothing about this information. He had brought this upon us. His greed had killed thousands. His death was simply data. "What happens to detained crew?" I asked. "Evaluation determines complicity. Those deemed non-complicit in tech heresy will be transferred to penal servitude. Those deemed complicit will be terminated. Evaluation is ongoing." I processed this. Penal servitude was slavery. Labor camps, mining operations, hazardous industrial work, life expectancy measured in months or years, not decades. But it was life. Temporary continuation. "Have you found the STC?" I asked. The tech priest's augmetic eyes focused on me. "Yes. Secure vault, deck 12. The artifact is intact. It contains complete manufacturing templates for 47 categories of Dark Age technology. Its value is incalculable. Its recovery justifies all measures taken. 47 categories. Thousands dead for 47 manufacturing templates. The mathematics were brutal. We completed cargo verification after 14 hours. The tech priest dismissed the other 2 crew to detention. He retained me. "Your records are accurate," he said. "You have maintained proper documentation standards. You will accompany me to secondary verification stations. Your cooperation continues to be noted." I followed him to Deck 8, to auxiliary cargo holds I had never accessed during my service. The Mechanicus had established a processing center there. Dozens of tech priests working at data terminals, analyzing recovered information, cataloging materials, coordinating the purge. I saw Davos there. He was seated at a terminal near the rear of the processing center. His damaged arm had been replaced with a crude, augmetic, temporary repair work. He looked exhausted. When he saw me, something crossed his face. Recognition, relief, sorrow. The tech priest escorted me to a Terminal 3 stations from Davos. "You will assist with cross-referencing historical cargo manifests. Access all archival data from your tenure. Flag any irregularities or unreported recovered technology." I began working. The task was simple. Mechanical, I processed data, flagged anomalies, submitted reports for review. Hours passed. The processing center remained active continuously. Tech priests do not require sleep the way unaugmented humans do. They worked in shifts, but the work never stopped. Davos approached my terminal during what I estimated was hour 9 of my shift. The supervising tech priest had moved to a different section. Brief window, brief opportunity. "You survived," Davos said quietly. "Yes. They are killing everyone who resisted, everyone who supported Harrow, everyone who was complicit. I know. They will kill me." His voice was flat, accepting. "I serve aboard this ship. I did not report the tech heresy immediately. I am complicit by association. You tried to convince Harrow to surrender. That will not matter. I failed. Failure and complicity are equivalent in Mechanicus judgment." He paused. "I am glad you survived. Your records will matter. Someone needs to testify." "I will testify." "Good." He looked at me for 11 seconds. I counted. "Thank you for listening. These past weeks, you were the only person who understood." "Understood what?" "That we were already dead. That the STC had killed us the moment we found it. Everyone else kept believing we could survive. You knew the truth." I wanted to say something meaningful, something that would comfort him. I could not find words. Truth was the only thing I had. "Yes," I said. "I knew." He nodded once. Then he returned to his terminal. I did not see him again for 6 hours. The execution order came during hour 15 of my shift. A senior Magos entered the processing center. He transmitted a list via noospheric link. I could not access the content, but I observed the reaction. 17 tech priests stood immediately. Their augmetic systems activated combat protocols. They moved to designated terminals throughout the center. Davos was one of them. He stood when the tech priest approached his terminal. He did not resist. He did not argue. He simply stood and walked toward the exit, with the tech priest behind him. He looked at me as he passed my terminal. His augmetic eyes met mine. He said nothing, but I understood. This was farewell. I watched him walk out of the processing center. I counted his steps. 47 before he disappeared through the doorway. I did not know where they took him. I learned later they conducted executions in the cargo cathedral, the same space where Harrow had announced the discovery. They brought the condemned there in groups. They executed them efficiently. Bolt rounds to the back of the head. Servitors collected the bodies for recycling. Davos died there, among hundreds of others deemed complicit. His body was processed into components. His augmetics were recovered for reuse. His organic material was rendered into nutrient paste or industrial compounds. Nothing wasted. The Mechanicus is efficient. I continued working at my terminal. I logged his death mentally. Timestamp, location, cause. Archived for testimony. I felt something. Not grief. Grief was inefficient. Something else. A recognition that the person who had seen me, who had chosen me as witness, no longer existed. An absence where connection had been. I processed this absence for 43 minutes while my hands continued working at the terminal, cross-referencing manifests automatically. My body functioned while my mind archived loss. Then I continued. Because continuing was all I knew. The evaluation came 72 hours after the initial boarding. I was brought to an assessment chamber. 3 tech priests sat behind a steel table. I stood before them while they reviewed my records. Service history, cooperation during verification, testimony about my knowledge of the STC. The senior tech priest spoke. Inventory Supervisor Designation Kalor. You have cooperated fully with Mechanicus Authority. Your records demonstrate no active participation in tech heresy. Your function was administrative, not decision-making. You followed lawful orders within your assigned role. I waited. There would be qualification. There was always qualification. However, you served aboard a vessel that committed tech heresy for 23 days between initial STC discovery and Mechanicus intervention. You benefited from that heresy through continued compensation and life support. You were complicit through inaction. You did not report the heresy to Mechanicus authority. There was no Mechanicus authority to report to, I said. The ship was in transit. No communication access. You could have attempted to seize the STC yourself for proper delivery. You could have resisted rogue trader Harrow's authority. You chose inaction. I chose inaction. Therefore, you are complicit. I had known this outcome was probable. I had hoped otherwise, but hope was not data. I accepted the judgment. However, the tech priest continued. Your cooperation has demonstrated value. Your records were accurate. Your testimony was truthful. The Omnissiah values efficiency. Terminating you would waste your administrative capability. Therefore, alternative judgment, penal servitude, 15-year term, assignment to Mechanicus facility requiring inventory management expertise. You will serve. You will document. If you survive your term, you will be released. Do you accept this judgment? Yes. You are transferred to Mechanicus custody immediately. Dismissed. Skiteri escorted me to a detention cell. 23 other crew were already there. I recognized 8 of them. Cargo handlers, engineers, junior officers. All evaluated as non-complicit enough to warrant servitude instead of execution. We did not speak. There was nothing to say. We had survived. Temporarily, we would serve. Perhaps die anyway during servitude. But we had a few more years of continuation. I thought about Davos. He had served the Mechanicus directly. He had tried to prevent the catastrophe. He had cooperated completely. They had killed him anyway, because failure and complicity were equivalent. But they had spared me, because I kept accurate records. Documentation mattered more than intention. I found this revelation hollow. We remained in detention for 6 days while the Mechanicus completed its purge. The ship was systematically cleared. All remaining crew located and processed. All cargo evaluated and catalogued. All systems consecrated and purified. The Sovereign's Reach would become Mechanicus property. Centuries of rogue trader service ended. The ship's history concluded. On the 7th day, they transferred us to a transport. 47 crew total. 47 survivors from 12,000. We boarded the transport in silence. They assigned us to a cargo hold, unsealed, unheated. We sat on the deck plating while the transport undocked from the Sovereign's Reach and translated to warp. During the transit, one of the crew approached me. Junior Engine Seer. I did not know his name. You were the one the tech priest talked to, he said, the one who tried to convince the rogue trader to surrender. No, that was Davos. He was executed. But you knew him. You talked with him. Yes. Did he think we could survive? Did he think surrender would save us? I considered lying, offering comfort. I chose truth. No. He knew we would die. He tried anyway because trying mattered. It did not save him. It did not save most of us. But he tried. The engine seer was silent for 23 seconds. So nothing mattered. The STC killed us anyway. Yes, the STC killed us. The moment we found it, we were condemned. Discovery was our death sentence. Then why did you cooperate? Why help them catalog everything? Why assist the ones who killed us? I thought about this question carefully. It was the question I had been avoiding. The complicity question. Because cooperation extended my life, I said finally. Because I wanted to survive long enough to testify. Because someone needs to document what happened here. If no record exists, 12,000 deaths mean nothing. They become rounding error in Mechanicus reports. I wanted them to mean something. Do they mean something? I do not know. He returned to his section of the hold. We did not speak again during the transit. The transport delivered us to a forge world designated Metallicus Sigma. We disembarked into a processing facility. They assigned us identification numbers, penal servitude designations, work assignments. I became Penal Laborer 3847, K. My function? Inventory management for hazardous materials depot. The work was identical to my service aboard the Sovereign's Reach. Logging cargo, tracking materials, maintaining records. The only difference was the cargo. Radioactive compounds, toxic chemicals, materials too dangerous for servitor handling, exposure levels that would kill unaugmented humans within months. They provided minimal radiation shielding, basic protective equipment, sufficient to extend life expectancy to perhaps 3 years. Some laborers survived longer, most did not. I began my term. The facility operated continuously. 3 shifts, 8 hours each. I worked Inventory Station 7, processing incoming and outgoing materials for Storage Vault 12. The work was mechanical, mindless. I processed thousands of containers monthly, logged their contents, tracked their storage locations, submitted reports to supervising tech priests who never acknowledged my existence. Other penal laborers died regularly. Radiation exposure, chemical contamination, industrial accidents. The facility maintained exactly 100 penal laborers at any time. When one died, they brought a replacement. The cycle continued. I survived by being careful. I followed every safety protocol exactly. I minimized exposure time. I maintained my equipment meticulously. I did not take risks. I did not volunteer for hazardous assignments. I functioned at exactly the minimum efficiency required to avoid punishment and exactly the maximum efficiency possible without endangering myself. 3 other survivors from the Sovereign's Reach had been assigned to the same facility. I encountered them occasionally during shift transitions. We did not speak. There was nothing to say. We had survived together. We were dying together, slowly, through radiation and chemicals instead of bolt rounds. One of them died after 8 months. Lymphatic cancer. The facility Medicae logged the death and requisitioned a replacement. The second died after 14 months. Toxic exposure during a containment breach. He was processing a damaged container when it ruptured. The chemicals melted through his protective equipment in seconds. He died screaming. It took 4 minutes. The tech priest supervising our shift logged the incident and ordered the area sealed for decontamination. The third survived 2 years. Then his kidneys failed. Cumulative radiation damage. The Medicae determined treatment was inefficient resource allocation. They terminated his pain management and let him die over 6 days. I watched him deteriorate during shift transitions. His skin turned gray, his eyes yellowed. He stopped speaking after day 3. On day 6, he simply did not wake. I was the last survivor from the Sovereign's Reach in the facility. I continued working, logged containers, maintained records, survived. At month 37 of my 15-year term, they transferred me to isolation storage duty, the deep vaults, sections too dangerous for regular shifts, materials so hazardous that exposure was measured in minutes, not hours. They sent penal laborers in rotation, 30 minutes per shift, long enough to complete basic inventory verification, short enough that cumulative exposure remained theoretically survivable. Theoretically, the isolation vault was 17 levels below the main facility, access via a single elevator shaft. The vault door was 3 meters thick, sealed with mechanical locks that required 2 tech priests to open. Inside, darkness. The emergency lighting had failed decades ago. They provided each laborer with a hand lumen, single light source in absolute dark. I entered the vault for my first shift. The silence was complete. No machinery hum, no ventilation systems, no background noise, just my breathing and the sound of my boots on metal deck plating. The isolation was total. I stood in the darkness, hand lumen casting a small circle of light, and I felt something I had not experienced in 3 years. Fear, not fear of death. I had accepted death. Fear of being alone with my thoughts, fear of what my mind would do without external input. Fear of consciousness unoccupied. I began counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rhythm, pattern, something to focus on besides the dark. I walked through the vault, checking container designations, logging numbers. Mechanical process. The containers were arranged in rows, precise spacing, labeled with hazard warnings I could barely read in the lumen's weak light. I completed the inventory verification in 22 minutes. I had 8 minutes remaining before extraction. I stood in the darkness and waited. Without work to occupy my mind, thoughts emerged. Memories. Davos walking toward execution. The crew member dissolving under radium fire. The bodies in the corridors. Harrow's voice promising fortunes. The smell of recycled air aboard the Sovereign's Reach. My mother's face. My father's silence after she died. I tried to suppress the memories. They persisted. I thought about the STC, 47 categories of technology, thousands dead to recover it. The Mechanicus had won. They had secured their sacred artifact. They had punished the tech heresy. They had restored order. And I was here, in an isolation vault, breathing contaminated air, counting down years until radiation killed me, surviving because I had kept accurate records. Was survival worth this? Would death during the initial purge have been preferable? Quick bolt round instead of slow deterioration? I did not know. The extraction alarm sounded. I walked back to the vault entrance. The doors opened. I stepped out. The tech priest logged my exposure time and dismissed me. I returned to my cell, lay on my cot, processed the isolation experience. I realized something. I was glad I had survived, despite everything, despite the radiation, despite the penal servitude, despite knowing I would die here eventually. I was glad I had continued, because I could still testify. I could still remember. I could still document. Even if no one would ever read my testimony, even if documentation changed nothing, the act of witnessing mattered. I could not explain why. It simply did. I returned to isolation vault duty 17 more times over the following year. Each shift, 30 minutes of darkness and silence. Each shift, my mind processing memories, while my body checked containers. I began speaking during those shifts, talking to the darkness, recording testimony aloud because recording was the only thing that gave me purpose. I spoke about the Sovereign's Reach, about the crew who had died, about Davos who had tried to prevent catastrophe, about rogue trader Harrow's greed and the Mechanicus's purge and the STC that had killed 12,000 people. No one heard these testimonies. No recording devices existed in the isolation vaults. My words dissipated into darkness and silence. But I spoke them anyway, because speaking made them real, because testimony mattered even when unheard. I survived 4 years of my 15-year term. Then my body began failing. Cumulative radiation exposure. The Medicaid diagnosed multiple organ degradation. Liver, kidneys, bone marrow. Treatment was available but classified as inefficient resource allocation for penal laborers. They estimated I had 6 months remaining. They did not terminate my work assignment. I continued inventory duty until I physically could not stand. Then they transferred me to a medical isolation cell to die. The cell was 3 meters by 2 meters. A cot, a waste disposal unit, a single lumen in the ceiling. They provided water but no food. My digestive system had failed. Nutrition was irrelevant. I lay on the cot and waited for death. Time became elastic. Hours and days lost distinction. I drifted between consciousness and unconsciousness. Pain was constant background process. The Medicaid provided no pain management. Inefficient resource allocation. I used the conscious periods to remember. I thought about my 17 years aboard the Sovereign's Reach. Routine, predictable, comfortable. I had been content in my function. Inventory supervisor, records keeper, purpose without complexity. Then we found the STC. Everything after that discovery was consequence. Harrow's greed. The Mechanicus pursuit. The crew fragmentation. The purge. Davos's execution. My survival and slow death. The artifact had value. Incalculable value. 47 categories of technology that would benefit the Imperium for millennia. But the cost was 12,000 lives, immediate cost, plus however many penal laborers would die before their terms concluded, plus whatever resources the Mechanicus had expended pursuing and recovering the artifact. Was the exchange worth it? 12,000 deaths for 47 technological templates? The Mechanicus would say yes. Technology was sacred, human life was expendable. The Omnissiah's will justified all costs. I did not know if the Omnissiah existed. I suspected not. The universe seemed indifferent to human suffering. If divine will governed reality, it was arbitrary and cruel. But my opinion did not matter. I was penal laborer 3847K, dying in a cell on a forge world whose name I barely remembered. My thoughts would die with me, unless I spoke them. Unless I testified one final time. I do not know who will hear this. Perhaps no one. Perhaps the Medicae servitor who will collect my body. Perhaps a tech priest who reviews cell recordings for data anomalies. Perhaps the darkness itself. But I will speak anyway, because speaking is the last function I can perform. My name was Kalor. I served aboard the rogue trader vessel Sovereign's Reach for 17 years. I was Cargo Inventory Supervisor, Section 3. I maintained accurate records. I followed procedures. I functioned as required. We discovered a standard template construct on a dead world designated Sephiro 2. Complete artifact. 47 categories of technology. Value beyond calculation. The rogue trader claimed it. The Adeptus Mechanicus demanded surrender. The rogue trader refused. His refusal killed us. Not immediately. We ran. We hid. We tried to negotiate. We tried to sell. We tried to survive. But the outcome was determined the moment we found the STC. Discovery was death sentence. We were simply dying slowly. The Mechanicus pursued us, boarded us, purged us. 7,418 crew died resisting. Most of the rest died in evaluation. 47 survived into penal servitude. I was one of them, because I kept accurate records, because documentation mattered more than innocence. I have served 4 years of a 15-year term. I will not complete the term. Radiation exposure. Multiple organ failure. I have perhaps 6 days remaining, perhaps less. The Medicae did not specify precisely. I have spent these final days remembering, processing, attempting to understand what my survival meant. I do not believe it meant anything. I survived because I cooperated. I cooperated because cooperation extended my life. I extended my life so I could testify. I testified to darkness and silence because testifying was the only purpose I could find. But perhaps purpose does not require audience. Perhaps witnessing matters even when unwitnessed. Perhaps the act of remembering honors the dead simply by occurring. I remember them now. I speak their names into darkness. Davos, tech priest who tried to prevent catastrophe, executed for failure and complicity. My mother, plasma coil maintenance technician, killed by coolant leak in year 41 of my life. My father, waste reclamation supervisor, died 6 months later because grief is sometimes fatal. The crew member who dissolved under radium fire. I never learned his name. The 3 crew who fired lasguns at Skitarii despite knowing they would die. The junior engineer who asked if anything mattered. I told him I did not know. I still do not. Brother Pyrion, Brother Mordain. Names from the previous testimony archived in containers that perhaps survived, perhaps did not. They are not part of this story, but I remember them anyway because memory is becoming fragmented. Files corrupting. Data degrading. I am dying. This is not philosophical observation. This is medical fact. My body is shutting down, liver function has ceased, kidney function is minimal. My brain is receiving insufficient oxygenation. Consciousness is fragmenting. I do not know how much longer I can maintain coherent thought. Perhaps hours, perhaps minutes. I want to say something profound, something that makes 12,000 deaths meaningful, something that transforms suffering into wisdom. I cannot. There is no wisdom here, only cost. The Imperium discovered technology worth planetary economies. The cost was 12,000 lives, and however many more will die in radiation-contaminated labor. The Mechanicus would call this acceptable exchange. Technology persists. Humans are replaceable. Perhaps they are correct. I am not qualified to judge. I was inventory supervisor. I logged containers and tracked materials. Philosophy was not my function. But I believe, that perhaps the cost matters. Perhaps the 12,000 deaths should be remembered as more than acceptable losses. Perhaps they were people, individuals, each with memories and purposes and connections that ended when they died. Perhaps I am wrong. Perhaps sentiment is inefficient. Perhaps the Mechanicus understanding is correct. Calculate value, accept cost, continue functioning. I cannot function much longer. My body is failing. Pain is overwhelming background systems. I am losing the ability to distinguish memory from hallucination. I see Davos, standing at my inventory station, telling me I would survive to testify. He was wrong. I survived 4 years longer than him, but survival and testimony are becoming equivalent to his death. We all end in darkness. Time difference is irrelevant. I see the cargo bay. Bodies, Skitari. The tech priest asking my function. I answered truthfully because truth was all I had. I see the isolation vault. 30 minutes of darkness repeated 18 times. I spoke testimony to silence. Perhaps the darkness remembers, perhaps not. I see my mother. This is hallucination. She died decades ago, but I see her face clearly now, more clearly than I have in years. She is smiling. I do not remember her smiling often, but in this vision, she smiles. I want to tell her I survived. I want to tell her I kept records. I want to tell her documentation mattered. But she is hallucination. She cannot hear me. No one can hear me. I am alone in a 3-meter cell on a forge world whose name I am forgetting. I am dying from radiation poisoning. My testimony will die with me. The STC that killed 12,000 people will benefit the Imperium for millennia. The exchange will be judged acceptable. And perhaps it is. Perhaps I lack the perspective to evaluate properly. Perhaps my suffering is insignificant against the scale of technological benefit. Perhaps the Omnissiah's will, if such exists, justifies all costs. I do not know. I know only this. I witnessed. I remembered. I testified, even when testimony was futile, even when no one listened, even when documentation could not save anyone. The act of witnessing was all I had. It is all I am. It is all that remains. I am Kalor. I served the Sovereign's Reach. I survived the Purge. I completed 4 years of penal servitude. I documented everything. This is my testament. This is my testimony. This is my final record. We found a standard template construct. It was worth planetary economies. It killed us anyway. Discovery was our death sentence. The treasure we found was the weapon that destroyed us. And the Imperium continued, and the Mechanicus recovered its sacred technology. And 12,000 deaths became acceptable cost in reports filed by tech priests, who never knew our names. I want to say their deaths mattered. I want to say testimony changes something. But I do not know if any of that is true. I know only that I witnessed, I remembered. I spoke their names to darkness. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps it is not. I cannot determine which. My consciousness is fragmenting. Pain is overwhelming cognitive function. I am losing coherence. My final thought, the recycled air aboard the Sovereign's Reach had a specific smell. Oxygen scrubbed through filtration systems, trace lubricant, metallic tang. 17 years breathing it. I can smell it now, hallucination. But vivid. I want to return there, to my inventory station, to routine, to purpose without complexity. But there is no return. The Sovereign's Reach is Mechanicus property now. My station is operated by someone else, perhaps a servitor. Perhaps another penal laborer. Perhaps no one. I exist nowhere now. Not aboard ship. Not in the Forge World facility. Not in my own body, which is failing systemically. I exist only in testimony, in the act of speaking to darkness, in the words I am thinking but can no longer voice because my throat has ceased functioning. I am memory becoming archive, becoming corrupted, data becoming silence. I am. The cell lumen flickers. This is real, not hallucination. Power fluctuation, standard Forge World inefficiency. The light dims, recovers, dims again. The darkness is patient. It will consume the light. It will consume me. It will consume this testimony. But not yet. Not while I remain conscious. Not while I can still think words, even if I cannot speak them. I remember Davos saying someone needed to witness. Someone needed to testify. He chose me for that function. I do not know why. I was nobody. Inventory clerk. Functionally invisible. But he saw me. He recognized me as someone who documented. Someone who would remember. I have remembered. I have documented. I have testified. To darkness, to silence, to hallucinated faces of people long dead, to myself, perhaps, to the consciousness that is fragmenting even as I think these thoughts, to the Imperium that will never hear this testimony, to the Mechanicus that would classify it as irrelevant data, to the Emperor who, if he exists, if he watches, if he cares, has more important concerns than one dying penal laborer on one Forge World among millions. I testify anyway, because testifying is the last function I can perform, because someone should speak the names of the dead even when no one listens, because witnessing matters even when futile. The lumen flickers again, longer this time. Darkness extends. Light returns, weaker. My heartbeat is irregular. I can feel it failing. Muscle tissue degraded by radiation, electrical systems misfiring. The rhythm that has sustained me for 43 years is becoming chaotic. I count the beats. Habit, pattern, something to focus consciousness on. 47 beats. 48. 49. The number is significant. 47 categories of technology in the STC. 47 survivors from 12,000 crew. Numbers that connect events to outcomes. 47 deaths purchasing 47 technologies. The mathematics are precise. The Mechanicus would appreciate the symmetry. 53, 54, 55. The pain is lessening. This is not improvement. This is system shutdown. My body is ceasing to transmit damage signals because transmission requires energy, and energy reserves are exhausted. I should feel fear. I feel only exhaustion. And perhaps relief. Continuation has become more burdensome than cessation. 62. I think about the cargo containers where I sealed my data slates, marked as waste, hidden among manifests. Perhaps they survived the Mechanicus purge. Perhaps they are still aboard the Sovereign's Reach, archived in some storage vault, unnoticed. Perhaps someday someone will find them. Will read the testimony I documented, will know what happened to us. Perhaps not. Perhaps they were incinerated during the purge. Perhaps they are drifting in void space, lost when the ship was cleared. It does not matter. I documented them. I created the record. The existence of the record matters more than its survival. The act of testimony has value independent of audience. I believe this. I must believe this. It is the only meaning I can find. 73, 74. The lumen fails. Darkness is complete now. The cell is void. I cannot see my own hands. I cannot see the walls. I cannot see anything except the hallucinated images my failing brain continues generating. My mother smiles. My father stands beside her. Davos nods once, acknowledging something I do not understand. The crew of the Sovereign's Reach, thousands of them, more faces than I could have known personally, stand in rows like the cargo containers I spent 17 years cataloging. They are waiting. For what? For me to join them? For testimony to conclude? For consciousness to cease? I do not know. My cognitive function is degrading too rapidly to analyze hallucinations properly. 89. 90. I want my final thought to be profound. Something that encapsulates meaning. Something that transforms suffering into purpose. But I have no profound thoughts remaining. Only observations. Only data. 12,000 crew died when we discovered the STC. 47 survived into penal servitude. I survived 4 years. Now I am dying in darkness. This is data. These are facts. They require no interpretation. The STC was worth planetary economies. 47 categories of technology. Benefit to the Imperium, incalculable. Cost 12,000 immediate deaths, plus however many penal laborers will die serving their terms. The Mechanicus will judge this acceptable. They are probably correct. I lack the perspective to evaluate properly. I am one consciousness, one dying voice, one insignificant data point in calculations that span millennia. But I was here. I witnessed. I remembered. I testified. That must be sufficient. It is all I have. 98, 99. My heart stops. I feel it. The cessation, the silence inside my chest, the sudden absence of rhythm. This is death. This is the final moment. This is my heart restarts. 1 beat. 2. 3. Dying organ refusing to quit. Biological imperative overriding systemic failure. I do not want to die. I realize this now. Despite everything. Despite the pain and the radiation and the penal servitude and the certainty that my testimony will die with me, I do not want to cease. I want to continue. I want to witness more. I want to document more. I want to testify longer. But wanting is irrelevant. My body has concluded its function. Continuation is not possible. Cessation is inevitable. 4 more heartbeats. 5. 6. The hallucinations intensify. I see the cargo bay. I see the isolation vault. I see my inventory station aboard the Sovereign's Reach. I see Davos speaking words I cannot hear. I see the STC, the container we found. Dark metal, no corrosion. Sealed with mechanical locks, worth planetary economies, worth 12,000 lives. Worth my life. Was it worth it? Did the technology justify the cost? Would I choose differently if I could return to that moment before discovery? Would I choose to never find the artifact, to leave it buried on Sephiro 2 for another 10,000 years? I do not know. The question is hypothetical. We found it, we died, the Mechanicus recovered it. The cycle completed. And I am here, dying in darkness, counting heartbeats that are becoming irregular, thinking thoughts that are becoming fragmented. This is the end. This is testimony concluding. This is consciousness preparing to cease. My final statement, I witnessed the cost of discovery. I documented 12,000 deaths. I testified to darkness that will never repeat my words. I did this because someone needed to. Because witnessing matters. Because memory honors the dead even when memory dies with the witness. I am Kalor, Cargo Inventory Supervisor, Penal Laborer 3847K, dying in a cell on Forge World Metallicus Sigma, 4 years, 6 months, 13 days after the purge. I served. I survived. I testified. This is my function completed. This is my record closed. This is my archive sealed. The Imperium continues without me. The Mechanicus benefits from the technology we died to recover. The STC serves its purpose. 12,000 deaths become rounding error in historical records. And I end here, in darkness, in silence, alone. But I was here. I existed. I witnessed. That must be sufficient. It must be 3 heartbeats. 2, 1. The darkness is absolute now. Not absence of light, absence of everything, absence of consciousness, absence of self. I am no longer inventory supervisor, no longer penal laborer, no longer witness. I am silence. I am data corrupted beyond recovery. I am testimony that died unheard. I am nothing. The Medicae servitor enters the cell 47 minutes after penal laborer 38. 47K ceases biological function. It scans the body, confirms death, logs the timestamp. Summons disposal servitors. No one reviews the cell recordings. There is no reason to. Penal laborers die regularly. Their deaths are expected outcome. Acceptable cost. System function. The body is removed, processed. Useful components salvaged. Remaining organic material rendered into industrial compounds. Nothing wasted. The mechanicus is efficient. The cell is sterilized. Prepared for the next occupant. Another penal laborer will arrive within 3 days. The cycle continues. On the former rogue trader vessel, Sovereign's Reach, now designated Mechanicus Asset 7743. Sigma. 3 cargo containers marked as waste remain archived in Storage Vault 41. They contain data slates documenting 17 years of inventory records. Testimony recorded by a cargo supervisor who believed documentation mattered. No one searches the containers. No one reads the data slates. No one knows the testimony exists. The containers remain sealed. The data persists. Unread, forgotten, archived. Perhaps someday someone will find them. Perhaps not. The outcome is irrelevant. The testimony existed. The act of documentation occurred. The witness spoke, even when no one listened. That was sufficient. It had to be. The Imperium continues. The Mechanicus benefits from 47 categories of Dark Age technology. Millions of humans will prosper from those technologies over the coming millennia. The cost was 12,000 immediate deaths, and however many penal laborers died, serving terms they could not complete. The exchange is judged acceptable, the calculations are logged, the reports are filed. And in a sterilized cell on Forge World Metallicus Sigma, silence remains. Absolute, complete, eternal. Testimony concluded. Witness ended. Archive sealed. This is what it is like to serve on a rogue trader ship that discovers an STC in Warhammer 40K. You find treasure beyond measure. You become targets. You fragment. You die. And the Imperium continues without you, benefiting from the discovery that killed you, while your name becomes rounding error in reports filed by functionaries who never knew you existed. Discovery is death sentence. Treasure is execution. The artifact that promises fortune delivers only cost. And someone should witness this. Someone should testify. Someone should document the price paid for technological benefit, even when testimony dies unheard. Even when documentation remains unread. Even when witnessing matters to no one except the witness. The act of testimony has value. It must. There is no other meaning to find. Silence.